Hey everybody, it's John Sullivan, and I'm back with another edition of the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. You may know me from my internet nomenclature, Buffalo66, and you may also know me from my Twitter page at Buffalo Hold'em. And you can also check out the Twitter page for this podcast at BLNowPod, or visit our website at blnowpod.com. And it's episode 5, and I don't have an interview this week, so you get me for the episode. And we're going to get into the meat of models shortly. But before I do that, I want to review my bets from the last week. And this was a week of juice, as I went 2-2. I had 1-1 in college plays, 1-1 in NFL, and I had 0 CFL plays, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's start off with last Thursday. I had the Denver-Kansas City over at 41.5 and beat that closing line by 1 point. And that did go over for us, even though it was a 0-0 first quarter. Then Friday, I came back with Boston College at over 46.5. Boston College, Florida State, and beat that also by 1 point, the closing line. Did not go over. That was a turd of a bet. Knew that was over by halftime. I mean, not over literally, but knew the bet was over for me by halftime. And then Saturday, that was my primo play. The first one I made last week was Temple under 55. And that was the best number. It never got better than that. At least not at Penny, but that was a crazy game. There was a 2-point touchdown in that game. If you don't know what that is, it's you block an extra point and you take it all the way to the house. It's 2 points for the defense there, and that was exciting, but just a crazy finish. I wasn't sure if that was going to come through, but it did. And then on Sunday, we had Baltimore -6, which we also got at -4. I took some extra at -4. The closing line was 6.5, so I did beat the closing line and finished 4-0 on beating the closing line. But we lost on Baltimore. They did have a chance to cover that, but they didn't. And they ended up losing outright. And like I said, I had no CFL plays. There were 2 overs I liked on Friday and Sunday. I talked about that over 42 last week, which ended up closing at over 45, and I could have had it at 43, but it wasn't the best number, and I was telling myself, if I can't get the best number, I don't play it. And I'm sitting here right now openly questioning myself if that is the optimal strategy. Is my strong opinion on a game worth more than the absolute best number? And what I do know is I don't know the answer to that. All I've learned in the short time I've been doing this podcast is that I'm still learning. And I'm trying to share what I know and learn some new stuff and hopefully interact with everybody. But I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. And a little knowledge is dangerous, I guess. But I'm going to test out what I believe to be the right course of action, and we'll both learn together whether I'm wildly successful or wildly a failure. Who knows? But 2-2, drank the juice this week, and we'll try it again. It's Monday afternoon as I record this. I'm not playing the Monday night game. Haven't made my models for the upcoming week, and I'm going to spend today talking about hot and beautiful models. And I'm not talking about Kate Upton or Hannah Davis, although I could talk about them for quite a while. I'm talking about handicapping models. And there are some people out there that handicap games that are exclusively modelers. And what I mean by this is they rely on their model to provide a accurate prediction of a future event, of a future game. And no one model is 100% accurate over the market, and there's no market that's 100% accurate over a model. It's somewhere in between. Let's start by going into theory. So in theory, models use numbers to accurately predict the outcome of a future event, just like a meteorologist uses models to predict the path of a hurricane. Now, meteorologists, most of them, as far as I know, are college graduates that study meteorology, and they've been predicting paths of hurricanes for 150 years or so, and they use computer models and crunch numbers, and they are pretty inaccurate at predicting paths of hurricanes. Are they better over time? Of course they are. It's just not something that is easy to do. And sports betting, in my opinion, is no different. You can get in the ballpark of where you think a number should be, and but I think there's very, very few people in the world that are better at predicting a spread than what the market can predict. That doesn't 100% correlate to wins and losses, but the point I'm trying to make is models can be very, very, very complex and time consuming, and like that last correlation, a complex model doesn't necessarily mean a more accurate one. But on the other hand, the more time you have to run a model or process a model or adapt your model, the more likely it's going to be accurate. Let me give you an example of this in the sports betting world. On a Sunday morning at 11:30, the inactives come out for the 1 o'clock games in NFL. And there's information that you didn't have earlier in the week. So now you know these running backs are playing, or these defensive backs are playing, this kicker, this punter is available or not. Well, that's going to help your model become more accurate. If you ran your model on Tuesday morning, you didn't have that information. So the Sunday morning model is going to be more accurate than the Tuesday morning model. However, 90 minutes before the game, you often don't have a lot of value left in the market. It's less likely that you're going to find the best number in those last 90 minutes. So having the most complex model might not be the best answer for our needs as a sports bettor. So we need to figure out how complex we want the model to be. So let me use an old school analogy for this. And let's talk about having an atlas for, I hope I don't need to explain what an atlas is, but let's go old school and we say we have a printed atlas, a bound book that has maps of the whole world in it. So what do we need in our atlas? And how big of an atlas are we going to need for what we need? And let me start off by saying, if we're just looking for a continent in the world, we need a map, but we don't need a whole atlas. If we're looking for a country, we probably just need a map for that. We don't need a whole atlas. If we're looking for a state and a country, we probably need an atlas, a book to carry around with us. If we're looking for a county within that state, we're going to definitely need the atlas, and probably need a pretty big one. I wonder if we're looking for a municipality in a certain county. Well, we're going to need a pretty big atlas to cover everything. If we're looking for a street in that city or town, you're going to need a huge atlas. And if you're looking for a specific latitude or longitude coordinate, you're going to need a huge book to carry around with you. And that's just an impractical thing. And that's my point. It's what size, what complexity do you need for your purposes? And that's what we're talking about with our model. We need to figure out how accurate we need our model to be, or how wieldy we need it to be for our purposes. To me, the model is a tool used to gauge the betting market. I'm not trying to beat the betting market. I'm trying to figure out where I think the betting market should be, and see where it starts and where it finishes. I also want the model to be accurate, but not a huge time suck. So I need to create a system that has both reasonable time constraints and reasonable results. And that's really what you're shooting for here. I'm not saying I'm not saying it can't be a world beater. I think it's highly unlikely that a model can be a world beater. But a model to get you in the ballpark. A model to figure out where there's likely value. That's what we're shooting for. So before we talk about how to build said model, let's figure out you don't want to figure out what numbers to put into your model. It's the easiest way to do it for a beginner is to crowdsource it. If you don't know what crowdsourcing is, it's taking an aggregate of other people's predictions to estimate where the number should be. And again, using real world-ish example, you hear people talk about crowdfunding, like on Kickstarter and stuff, and that's getting the group to contribute financially. And instead of crowdfunding, we're crowdsourcing, and we're getting the group to contribute the number. We're getting the group to contribute their opinion on the game. And this way, it's definitely not math intensive. It's just, getting information. Now, you could go out on the street corner or go down to the coffee shop or the bar and ask everybody their opinion on the game. Probably not going to be a good use of your time. You're going to get opinions. Chances are they're likely not to be accurate. Obviously, the internet's the way to go. It's pretty easy on the internet to find predictions on an upcoming game. And if you're just joining us, I'm John Sullivan, and you're listening to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. And we're just getting into a crowdsourcing a sports betting model. And you're going on the internet looking for opinions on the game. Now, any single prediction that you get, you can read an article on the upcoming Notre Dame game, and it could be wildly accurate or wildly inaccurate. And that's a given. Any single data point could be spot on or crazy. However, if you can find 30 predictions on that same game, the average should be a reasonable indicator of where the market should be on the game. Now, you have to take into account as somebody that really scans information on an upcoming game when those predictions are made. If there's a prediction on that game that was made 3 months ago, less likely to be accurate than a prediction on the game that's from today. Excuse me. So, crowdsourcing your model, 30, for a beginner, 30 predictions might be hard. 20 or 10, doable. So you say, well, where can I find predictions on the game? I'm actually going to give you a source that I don't use. I'm not recommending it, but I'm giving you a jumping off point. So if you've never created a model before, well, here you go. So if you have ESPN Insider, you can go to what's called their Pick Center, and they have predictions on upcoming games: NBA, NFL, college football, basketball, baseball. They don't do hockey. They do soccer. But anyway, you pick the upcoming Notre Dame game on Saturday against UMass. You go there, and there'll be, I think, 2 or 3 numbers. You get a predictive score for each team, which gives you the spread. And you get a total score for each team, which gives you the total. And there's 2 or 3 data points right there. Now, I don't use those. I'm not recommending them, but there are other places on the internet that I have found that I have predictions that I trust. And to be honest with you, some of them I wildly agree with, and some of them I wildly disagree with. But I think it's good to have varying opinions, because that aggregate is really going to give you a number that's that ballpark sweet spot number that you're looking for to figure out where a game is. So over time, you're going to find consistent predictions that you're going to keep in your model, and then other sources that you're probably going to discard over time, whether the source is not, it's infrequent, they don't give you a prediction every week that you're looking for, or it's wild, you find it to be wildly inaccurate and you just decide to drop it. It's something that you don't count it as having any value. Well, that's going to reduce your crowd. You started out with 30 and then you're down to 10 or 5. And what this does is it decreases the amount of time you spend building your model, but it doesn't really decrease the accuracy of your model. You're getting rid of you're keeping the reliable opinions, and you're discarding the unreliable or infrequent opinions, and that reduces the amount of time you have to spend building your model and getting your jumping off point. So if I start with 30 predictions on the upcoming game and the line's -7, and then over time I get it down to 5, 6, 8, 10 numbers, and I still get an accurate prediction. Well, there I have my jumping off point, and I've saved myself a lot of time. I'm not spending 3 days making a model. I'm spending a couple of hours. Now, the crowdsourced model is at your beginning point to finding value in the betting market, and that's what we're shooting for. We're not trying to just beat the market. We're not crowdsourcing a model. Like I said, if I say my crowdsource says Notre Dame's a 7-point favorite this weekend, and the number is Notre Dame -20, well, I'm not just jumping on the dog, even though it's a 13-point swing, and that's almost 2 touchdowns. It's designed to point out that the huge swing that exists is a research point for you. It's a potential value. So it's up to you, when you see that, to research that game, to see which players are playing, which players aren't playing, what the weather's like in that game. If the game was moved because of TV, any other tidbits of information. I mean, that's what the number's telling you. And that's a very important point, because if you just blindly bet the biggest swings, it's going to have a bad result. It's not just it's not that simple. So that's what that jumping off point number is. That's what that crowdsourced number is designed to do. It's designed to take those 60 plus games on the schedule and give you 4 or 5 to look at, and maybe find a bet or two in there. You can have a number where the total, my crowdsourced total is 50, and then I look on Tuesday and the number in the market is 50, and then Saturday when the game's about to pop off, it's at 45. Well, if you watch, that's a sign to figure out why the line moved that way. It's something to look at. If you have time to do it that way, it's a little easier to research the games that are swung out, in my opinion. Like my first example, where the swing was almost 2 touchdowns. Those are the games that are easier to research, and it gives you more time to find the best number. But it works both ways. But once again, my point here is that our model gives us a number to help us find value and help us target games. Now, we've learned how to crowdsource a model. When you reach this point, it's time to up it a little bit and incorporate your own number on the game into your crowdsource numbers. Now, you can create your own opinion on the game from a bunch of different ways. Most people use some type of mathematics. You grab some power ratings. There's dozens of rankings of teams, like all of FBS, Division I, college, or NFL, every major sports that comes out with ranking of teams. There's certain statistics you can use: yards per play, plays per game. Every 100 yards advantage in offense or defense is worth +7 or -7 points. You can make your own recipe. It's like a home brew. The point is, you can add your own opinion into the crowd, and that's one way to go. And then, as you become familiar with other opinions that you use in your crowdsourced model, you can weigh them differently. Say you've narrowed it down to 8 really good opinions on an upcoming game. You can weigh each opinion equally and just average them together, or you can say this one's worth more and this one's worth less, and value them at different weights to come up with a number. It's up to you. It's your homebrew recipe. But you want to come up with a number in a reasonable amount of time that has some confidence behind it. It's just a way for you to attack the games on the schedule, to find value, and make you some money. Use modeling as a tool. That's what it's designed to do. How can you find value in the betting market if you spend 6 days of the 7 days of the week building your model? If I'm working on it Monday to Saturday, and then I stop Saturday morning to bet on college games, a lot of the value could be already gone. And the same with Sunday. Lines move a lot on Sunday morning NFL, but if you're waiting till noon to bet a 1 o'clock game, most of the time you've lost the value in the market. So you want to be efficient with your time. I recommend crowdsourcing a model. I think it's the way to find a good number that you can use to get you some value. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I'm still lining up on my second interview. Hopefully that'll happen soon. And if you want to follow my plays, you can do that on my Twitter. Again, it's at Buffalo Hold'em. You can Twitter the podcast at BLNowPod. Questions or comments are appreciated. Any topics you want me to talk about, let me know. So we'll hopefully do better next week. And until next time, enjoy the games and bet like no one's watching. Take care.